My name is Roberto Blake, and I've made over 1,000 videos on YouTube, which is kind of a lot. There are a lot of you who have asked how I make my YouTube videos, and today I'm going to walk you through what that process looks like. What camera gear do I use? What's the lighting setup, the audio? How do I edit my videos and make my thumbnails before I put everything out here in YouTube for you guys to watch? While there's a lot of content out there about how to grow a YouTube channel, there's not a lot that actually shows you what it's really like to make videos. So let's jump into it today. Oh, and before I forget, make sure you subscribe. A little bit of YouTube humor there. But today's video is actually brought to you by my friends over at Adobe Stock, and I use them all the time when it comes to making these YouTube videos. Even if you guys don't realize it, I've been using Adobe Stock for a while to make the thumbnails for these YouTube videos just a little bit extra special. I also use Adobe Stock for graphics and for video clips in my coaching business, so it's something you'll definitely want to check out. Also, if you're trying to make a little bit of passive income, they have a great contributor program. So if you actually make stuff for Adobe Stock, there's a chance that someone like me will actually buy it to use in their YouTube videos. If you want to check out Adobe Stock as a creator or as a contributor, link is down in the description below. For a lot of people, the hardest part is coming up with ideas for their videos. Me, I have an audience, so usually I go to the comment section, I get ideas. And when I didn't have an audience, I would stick to things that I know and that I really am passionate about. And I usually just freeform my content off the top of my head. But there are creators that use scripts, and if you're someone who needs that to just stay on track or to make sure that video isn't too long, then you should absolutely use scripts. As for me, not a big fan of scripts. If I actually used them, I could probably make these videos a little bit shorter. To film most of these videos, I'm currently using a Sony a7R III, which is much more expensive and overkill for what you actually need, but I love having this camera and I use a 16 to 35mm zoom lens so that I can do this whenever I want, which is actually pretty cool, and it makes editing my videos a little simpler. But when I was really first getting started in 2013 and taking YouTube seriously, I actually used a very inexpensive camera. But when I first started getting serious and doing regular content in 2013, I was using a zoom lens on this Nikon D3200, which doesn't even have a flip out screen, and then I upgraded to a 35mm prime lens so that I could get the blurry background look that could make my videos look like, the bigger YouTube channels out there. In terms of lighting, I've gone through a lot of different lighting setups. They started out at about $150 when I first got started, very basic lights. But today I use a Aperture Tech Lightstorm 120D. It's very expensive, but they sent that to me as a sponsor. Yeah, that helps. But I also bought an $80 newer ring light, which takes shadows off my face, especially when I'm wearing my hats, because I love my hat collection. And a lot of times I'll also use an additional panel light for my 3-light setup. When I first got started, I really struggled with audio. A lot of times initially I was using the in-camera audio, which was not great. I don't recommend that under any circumstances. And then I went through a couple of wired lapel mics that cost like $20 or $30, and it was a Sony one that was really good for the majority of my videos. I think I got pretty much up to my first 80,000 subscribers still using a $20 microphone. Eventually I would upgrade to a Rode VideoMic Pro, and now I use a Rode VideoMic Pro Plus for my primary audio most of the time. And when I'm out on the road, I use Sennheiser wireless labs, which are really expensive. The Rode VideoMic Pro is about $300, so it's reasonable, but you don't have to do anything that fancy. There are great solutions under $100, and I'll be sure to cover some in upcoming videos on the channel. When I shoot interviews, there are a couple of other cameras that I use. The Sony has the limitation of a 30-minute time limit for recording, which you would think would be enough, but not for this guy. When I'm doing speaking engagements or longer interviews, like the one I did with MKBHD, I actually use 2 Panasonic GH5s. These shoot 4K video and there's no recording time limit. That's what I like about them. The downside is they're not great in low light situations, so I just kind of make do when it comes to that, or I use extra portable lighting to help me out. These are great cameras. They're a little bit more expensive. Most of my content, all the way up to about 120,000 subscribers, was done on the Nikon D3200. I wouldn't upgrade to these cameras until much later, so I think I upgraded to these in about 2017, and I still use them a lot for content on this channel, even if my main shooter is now the Sony. A lot of times when I'm doing product shots, product photography, or product reviews, I'll use a macro lens. I use the Sigma f2.8 70mm macro. A lot of times I also will use a wide angle lens, and this one is a 16mm for the Sony a6500. A lot of times this is something that I do with either a slider or a gimbal, but the actual stabilization in the Sony is so good that I can also do it handheld. This is also how I take a lot of my stock photos and even the photos for the thumbnails of these videos. Let's talk about how I make my YouTube thumbnails and also how I edit the videos for this channel. So this is a custom PC setup. I built it myself and I use Adobe Photoshop for most of my graphic design work, including the YouTube thumbnails that you guys see on this channel. To help make that easier, I use a Wacom Intuos 13. It's actually the newer version of that, and it works out really well. Before that, I was using an Artisul D13, and I just found that the Wacom is a lot smoother. Making good thumbnails for YouTube is what gets clicks, and those lead to views, those lead to subscribers, etc. The combination that's worked the best for me is a combination of good photography, good design, text, and also using good assets like, textured backgrounds or graphical elements. And for that, I usually turn to Adobe stock and pull those things into Photoshop that I can manipulate myself because of my skills as a graphic designer. If you actually want some tutorials on how to use Photoshop, I've got plenty of those here on the channel, dozens of them. Once I'm satisfied with a thumbnail, that's half of the battle. And again, a lot of times I will shoot a photo for that thumbnail in advance, and this actually helps make them a lot better, and it gives me options for my thumbnails. And even if I want, I can actually change them later or do A/B testing to see what works better for the audience. For video editing, I use Adobe Premiere Pro, and for the audio workflow, I'm using Adobe Audition. These work together seamlessly, and it's just been a great workflow for me personally overall. When I need lower thirds or motion graphics, I actually turn to Adobe stock for that, and you can also find a lot of these assets for free, both in Adobe stock and in the essential graphics panel in Adobe Premiere Pro. And I think that that's just really convenient, especially when you don't want to go into After Effects yourself. I mean, I can, but that's a lot of time and effort when you're putting out a lot of content. Once I've cut out all the ums or the times that I flub my words, and after doing a couple of takes, I can actually just go ahead and upload these videos to YouTube after I export them from Adobe Media Encoder. The edits that I make to my videos are really simple. It's usually just jump cuts, the occasional transition or wipe, dropping in some B-roll footage where it makes sense. In a lot of cases, I keep the videos simple because I just enjoy having a direct conversation with my audience. There's nothing wrong with doing a lot of extras or cinematics. Drone footage is awesome, but a lot of times for me, it's just not necessary for the type of videos I do because I'm just talking to people the way that I would talk to a friend. And so after 1,000 videos on YouTube, now you understand a little bit more about my process and how the videos that you enjoy watching get made. I want to thank my friends over at Adobe Stock for helping sponsor this video, and also everything that the Adobe team does for creators. You obviously see that it's a big part of my workflow, but it's also been a big part of my life and my career. And I'm just really grateful that there are tools out there for creators like us to be able to create awesome things and share them with the world. Question of the day: what's your favorite video making tool and why? It can be a camera, it can be a piece of software. Just tell me what tool helps you the most when it comes to your creativity and what you're making. I would love to hear from you in the comment section. Remember, you can join Adobe Stock and become a contributor by using the link in the description down below. And who knows, if you do, maybe your work shows up in one of my future videos. Like this video if you like it. Don't forget to subscribe. Check out the other awesome content here on the channel. As always, you guys, thanks so very much for watching. And don't forget, go out there and create something awesome today. Take care.